right. Thank you so much, Patricia, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I'm Shari Bresin. I am the Family and Consumer Sciences Agent at the Pasco County Extension Office. Pasco County is down near Tampa, if you're not familiar. And Family and Consumer Sciences basically encompasses a lot of different things, but a lot of what I do is health and wellness education as well as financial education. So, what I love about this subject is that it kind of gets both subject matters overlapping. So, we're going to talk about a number of things today. So, the main things we'll cover, we're going to learn about daily calories needed and shopping for nutrient-dense food and meals, and also talking about a realistic grocery budget and how meal planning can help you achieve that. So we're going to do a few icebreaker questions first. So a lot of you talked about what your dinner was last night. Was that planned or was that improvised? You can just write in the chat real quick. Was your dinner last night planned or was it not planned? Hmm. Okay. A good mix. Some were last minute, some were planned. Good. All right. And then what is your dinner tomorrow night and the night after? So, can you tell me and tell the group in the chat, what is your dinner Tuesday night and Wednesday night? Or do you not have it planned that far in advance? I like seeing all these responses. This is fun. Okay, so some of you do have plans for as far out as Wednesday. Some have no idea. Some are not even sure what Tuesday's going to look like, or even what Monday's going to look like, let alone Wednesday. So, okay. And then the last question in our icebreaker, did you overspend on groceries last month? Yeah, especially now, we're kind of in a weird time where, yeah, with gas being so high, that kind of trickles down into things at the store. So this will hopefully be short term, but regardless of what your budget is, a lot of people are struggling to stay within their set grocery budgets. Yeah, a lot of things are expensive. Yeah, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you all for sharing and our little icebreaker questions. So, with creating a food budget, they say the general recommendation is to spend 10 to 15% of your take-home pay on food. And that's all food, whether that's your groceries, and your restaurant food and all the convenience store foods, right? You stop in real quick at a gas station for an iced coffee. If you are at the vending machine at your office's break room, right? All of that's going to count towards that 10 to 15%. I tried to see if there was an even more revised number, and they're still saying 12 to 15%. I saw a few things out there that said 12%, so right in the middle. All right, so just taking what your take-home pay is and just going from there. I don't like that it doesn't take into consideration a lot of other factors like family size, etc., but that is the general recommendation. We'll look into more specifics in a second. So, when you're tracking your food spending, if you haven't done so, think about the last 2 weeks and then just ask yourself these questions. So, did you spend more on prepared food and restaurant food than you did on grocery food? And are there any items that you bought that you could go without that weren't really necessary towards your nourishment and your meals? And did you run out of food at the end of the month? Or at the opposite end, did you have too much food left over at the end of the month? Maybe you ended up throwing food away. And if you did, was it spoiled before you had a chance to eat it? All right, so a lot of these are going to take you have to take into consideration with your food budget, especially if you've never made a food budget, and and just going through this list of questions and how to best track your food intake that's coming in through the month. Oh, Mindy, you're asking about. So this would be if you're, yeah, this would be how are you sh so what is your so usually household budgets, people do it on a monthly basis. So your budget would be monthly. So yeah, this 10 to 15% recommendation is looking at a monthly number. So what are you spending per month? Now, most people shop per week, maybe every other week. So you might just get to that number a little differently. But yeah, the 10 to 15% is just looking at your monthly food budget. All right, so we're going to start off with looking at this budgeting tool. This is going to actually show you what a realistic grocery budget should be for your household. So if you can, scan that barcode, or we can get this. Let's get the, oops, hold on. It's not letting me, yeah, thank you, Patricia. So there's the link in the chat. So I want you to go through this. It's going to ask questions about your household size, the ages and genders of everyone in your household, how often that the members of your household eat out versus eating in. And then once you go through all the members of your household, it's going to give you a number. They use this from USDA guidelines on food costs, and it'll tell you what a realistic budget might look like for you. So again, that is in the chat. I'll leave this QR code up for a few more seconds. And of course, I will be quiet while you work on that. And basically, it'll look like this. So just go through the list of questions to come up with your grocery budget. And then if you can just mark done in the chat when you're done, that'll let me know when to move on. All right, seeing a lot of people had a chance to fill that out. Some of us might be bigger household sizes than others, so it might take a few more steps for others to get it done. But I want you to look at that number that you see there. And then I want you to think about these questions. So, how does this number that you're seeing on this activity that we just did measure up to what you're actually spending? Somebody said they feel like they're spending more than what this tool is saying. And I do want to point out that this does not count cleaning and hygiene products. I know that makes it a little challenging. Most of us lump that all together when we're at the grocery store. We usually get napkins and paper towels and cleaning wipes and etc., right? So that makes it a little hard to know if we're being as accurate. But trying to take that into consideration, think about what you spend on just your groceries. Just reading what everyone's saying in here. Some people are saying I'm seeing a lot of people say they spend more than what they're seeing. Okay. And then take into consideration also that 10 to 15% of your take-home pay rule that we talked about a few slides ago. Does that number take up pretty much that whole recommendation? And if not, does it leave enough room for restaurants? Because again, we were just talking about grocery spending, not overall food costs with restaurants. Yeah, people are saying they spend more, shopping sales. Yeah. All right, and Kim said that they just eat at home. So that definitely helps. You don't have to worry about getting restaurants as its little subcategory under your food budget. That certainly helps a lot. But it's hard for a lot of people. It really is. We all have commitments and families and so much running around. It's really hard to cook every night. But we'll talk about that too. And then if you aren't paying attention, it's a good idea to just, again, looking at a week, 2 weeks worth back, how much did you spend? Did you throw away food? Is there anything you can go without, etc.? it's good to just pay attention because, times are hard and we want to make sure that our money is being spent wisely. We want to be responsible consumers. All right. Pam said she spends less. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, when I used this tool, it actually had a much higher number. And I think it even said make sure you're not skipping meals. I don't know if you saw that part. If you spent less, there was a section that said make sure you're not skipping out on meals. I don't feel like I am. I guess we're just really good meal planners now. So I was excited to see that we were going under our food budget based on this tool. Sorry, one more comment seeing here. Buying groceries in bulk. Yeah, yeah, Raphael, good points there. We'll talk about all of that too. All right, so a lot of people with their grocery budgets, of course, we all need snack foods, right? It's hard to get by without snacks. If we have kids, especially, they need snacks, right? Their little stomachs can't hold food for very long and they get hungry. So we need to have snack foods on hand. So here's just some common snacks. Snacks can really break a food budget for a lot of families, especially when they're not very nutrient dense. So now you're just filling up on empty calories, and we'll talk about that more on the next slide. But you can see here, you got the chips that are almost $6, you got these cookies that are almost $5, snack cakes, Cheetos, right? These are pricey things, and they will fill you up. You can see they're high in calories, but they're also high in sugar, fat, right? So it's not very healthy, right? We're talking not just grocery budgeting, but healthy grocery budgeting. So, as you are meal planning and grocery shopping, hopefully you are getting things on the nutrient dense side and not the calorie dense side. So you can see here on this image, it's exactly as it sounds. Nutrient-dense foods are going to be very high in nutrition and low in calories and fats. So with that being said, you might want seconds, maybe even thirds on your portions and serving sizes because they are so low in calories, right? And don't worry about getting seconds because again, you know you're not getting a lot of calories on these foods versus the calorie dense side. These are the empty calories. So it will fill you up very quickly, but there is very little nourishment, right? Your empty calories are not providing much for any nutritional value. So your cookies and your candies and your sodas, right? And then they are pricey, as we saw in the previous slide, right? Cookies can be almost $5. It filled you up, and unfortunately, then that's about all it did, right? No nourishment there, no vitamins, minerals, fiber. All right, so thinking about nutrient dense. So nutrition should always be front and center as you go about your grocery shopping, or should I say your meal planning, right? That comes first. So the three steps for healthy eating on a budget, you want to plan ahead and then shopping strategically and reduce food waste. So we'll cover these next. So meal planning. You always want a meal plan. So for those of you that said you think you shop more than what you saw on that tool that we just looked at, you might need to meal plan either more, just start meal planning or try to do so more efficiently. You might have excess food that you're not fully utilizing. So the first step with meal planning before you look at anything, right, look in your fridge and your pantry. That is step one. Can you plan an entire meal based on what is already in your house? Right? You might already have all the ingredients to something or half the ingredients to something, right? So that's your first step because you want to use what's already on hand, right? Don't let that go bad. So shopping first in your house. And then you're going to plan a meal or plan a menu of meals and snacks for the week or 2 weeks, however you do your grocery shop rotation. And then you know your budget, right? We looked at it a few slides ago. So look at that as your guide for your budgeting. And you're also going to want to take into consideration your schedule. All right. So there's so much at play here, nutrition, budgeting, scheduling, meal planning. It's a lot. It's real, I'm not going to sugarcoat it that anyone can just do this tomorrow night and suddenly your grocery budget gets slashed in half, right? It'll take time to get there. All right, there is a learning curve too with your budgeting and your meal planning. But one thing that really helps is including meals that stretch. All right, these stretchy meals, these would be your soups and your stews and your stir fries. All right, things that you can maybe add one or two extra ingredients, cheap ingredients, but maybe get you a whole other meal or several lunches that you can take to work. All right, so think of like a cheap filler ingredient like beans or rice or lentils. And then can you add any kind of water or broth and extra vegetables? Those are going to help bulk up your meals and make them stretchy. A non-stretchy meal would be something that's a fixed portion, like a hamburger or a slice of pizza or a sandwich, right? So you can't really play around too much with the portion of it, so to speak, right? So if you had something, say you had a fried chicken or a chicken or a rotisserie chicken, right? Instead of just making that the base of the meal, how can that be incorporated into something to make it a more stretchable meal? All right, so your fried chicken might be in a chicken rice bowl, or your rotisserie chicken you could make into chicken tacos, right? If you have a steak planned, maybe that can just be put into a stir fry, right? So there's different ways you can take just your base ingredients and then find a way to put it into a more stretchable dish, and then that will help make it into less fixed portions. And then you can maybe easily get that as a second dinner where you're getting leftovers or lunches for work. Right. It's hard to make a hamburger go far, right? Because once that burger is formed into its patty shape, then that's pretty much the portion that you're going to eat. All right, a little bit more about this meal planning stuff. Um, so I just said leftovers. I like the term planned overs. You might have heard this before. So that's again, exactly as it sounds, you are planning to have leftovers. Some people don't like the word leftovers, kind of has a negative connotation sometimes. But leftovers can be great. So plan on having those leftovers. Purposely make a double or triple batch of something, and you instantly have an extra meal. Um, So, for example, we made a chili in the crock pot Thursday night. We had that planned. I had a work event Thursday night. So when my husband and I went through our meal planning slash menu making the previous shopping trip ago, I said to him, Thursday night is kind of crazy. I'll be home very late. Let's do something in the crock pot. And we made a huge batch of chili, and that is actually our dinner tonight. So we are off the hook for cooking tonight, and we plan that accordingly. All right. And then also think of no cook meals. It doesn't have to be a hot meal you're sitting down to every night. You could do a salad or a sandwich too. All right. Those also count. You can do a veggie wrap or a hummus wrap, right? So anything like that too, even if it's cold, consider those two for your meals. And then meat is getting so expensive these days. I'm not saying you have to go full on vegetarian, but consider being meatless a few nights a week just to help with that grocery budget. So some plant-based proteins that you can use, of course, beans, lentils, right? These are going to be cheaper than your animal-based proteins and can help stretch a meal. So consider doing that if you're having trouble fitting in the cost of meat in your budget. And then, of course, if you're getting circulars in the mail or you see them online, there's discount stores, third-party apps. We'll talk about those too, but those are also going to really help with your food budget as well. And then once you do your meal planning, so again, you looked in your fridge, you came up with your menu, and then here's your grocery list. So there are actually two different steps, which we'll come to. All right, so with planning your meals, right, we have these five food groups. We've seen these for a while now, right? So your protein, your vegetables, fruit, greens, dairy. A snack ideally would have two food groups, and a meal should have ideally at least three food groups. So if you're snacking on a piece of fruit, that's great, But could you make it a little bit more balanced and maybe add peanut butter to your fruit, right? So now it's a little bit more balanced, getting a little bit more nutrition. That would put you at two food groups. So just planning things like that too could also help with getting nutrition and getting that balance in your diet. Again, you don't have to, it's just a recommendation. So those are the five food groups. We're actually going to do another activity about calorie levels. All right, so Patricia, if you can get this next activity in the chat, or if you all are able to scan that QR code, we are going to now look at how many calories you need per day and the different macronutrients and even micronutrients. This is a really cool calculator that'll help you also, again, look at your calorie levels. So I'll be quiet for a sec while you fill that out. And then if you can just mark done when you are finished. I'm seeing some people are done. If you're done and even want to fill it out for a family member, it's pretty helpful to at least know what calorie levels all members of the family should be trying to get. And again, this is just for at your current weight, right? It asks about your weight. Of course, if you are trying to lose weight, what you see for calories would be less. And if you're trying to put on weight, the calorie levels you should target would be more. So obviously that would get a little bit more nuanced. So you would talk to your doctor if you're hitting any kind of weight loss or weight gain goals. Okay, yeah, Raphael mentions, yeah, that's a lot less. It's doable though. It's definitely doable. All right, so we saw our grocery budget and now we're seeing our calorie levels. If you're getting a lot of snack foods, you might be getting a lot of your daily calories from snacks. And I'm not talking the healthy stuff, but the stuff a few slides ago, the cookies and the chips, right? Those calorie dense food. You don't want to focus on the calorie dense food, you want the nutrient dense food. If you're getting too much of the stuff heavy in calories, you might be going over calories. And then that is another issue where it could lead to weight gain and any associated health issues. So there's a few different things in play, right? With your calorie levels and getting enough food in your budget, but also within your calorie levels. So also good to do if you have kids, right? Especially if you're trying to keep them within a certain calorie range. All right, so with the meal planning, as we talked about, looking at your current inventory, what do you already have at home? That is step one. What's in your house? You're going to plan a meal based on that. And then looking at your schedule, right? What nights can you cook for that night and prep for the next nights? What night can you just cook and not prep? What night can you do neither? That's going to help play out how your weekly menu is going to look like. All right, so once you see what you have, you see what your schedule is like, make that weekly menu and then create your shopping list. So step three and four, they're going to be different. They're going to look different, right? Your menu is the meals, and then your shopping list is the ingredients. All right, so in my household, we just put everything on, and we just have a notebook um, app, right? So we just write out what the meals are, and then we know what we need to shop for, right? So we're looking in our pantry and our fridge, right? Oh, those green peppers are looking wrinkly. We're gonna make something with green peppers this week. Okay, let's make fajitas. All right, what night can we prep it, right? There's so much to factor in with making sure that we're eating within our calories and getting within our budgets and fitting our busy schedules. So just looking at this as an example, pretend this is your fridge at home. So what food groups do you see? What meals or snacks would you plan? Just getting creative. What would you come up with? Oh, Michelle, I love your question. So believe it or not, if you haven't done this already, if you use any of the chat models like ChatGPT, it'll come up with so many ideas for you. And I've used it myself. It's given me some really awesome ideas. All right, seeing some really cool ideas. Broccoli and rice casserole, stir fry, egg salad. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so you're seeing here, right off the bat, you might not need to shop for a whole lot of things for certain meals just because you have a lot of what you already need. You have a lot of these ingredients. So yeah, you can make an omelet, whether that's a going to be a breakfast on the weekend or even an omelet for dinner, right? A stir fry with egg and mushroom and bell pepper, right? There's a whole lot of ideas. Um, Yeah, Vincent said, "Where's the meat?" Yeah, and that would be an example of, okay, so the meat's what we need at the store. We'll plan a meal based on what's in the fridge, but now we'll buy what else we need at the store. All right, and actually, I think on the third shelf down, those might be pre-made hot dogs. This is not my fridge at home, so I don't know the the full scope of what was in this fridge, but that is what I think is on there. All right, and then. So you're seeing what's in your house. Now you're looking at a weekly ad. So let's pretend you're seeing this. This is for Aldi. What can you plan out now before you head to the store? What is going on your weekly menu? Yeah, these are some good ideas. Beef stir fry bowls. Yeah, somebody said soup. So you see the onions and carrots are for sale. And there's other vegetables in the fridge already. So yeah, something as simple as a soup. Can you make it a double or triple batch? And boom, you got two dinners covered, right? So always things to keep in mind as you are making your menu, right? So kind of think about your household as a restaurant, right? So you have your set menu, you have your set budget. What are the meals going to look like, right? So there's you know, it's And like I said, it takes some trial and error. You might not hit your budget in the beginning. You might go over a little, but you'll start to see what meals you can easily make double or triple batches of and what meals are more stretchable, right? If you can add a liquid to something, that's a good sign that it's stretchable. And how stretchy can you make it and how long can it last? All right. And then here's a sample schedule, like I said. So you're looking at your uh, the weekly ads, you're looking in your fridge, but what is your week ahead going to look like? All right, because some nights you might not be able to cook at all, and those are the nights we're most tempted to stop at the drive-through. And the drive-through is very expensive these days too, right? That can really eat into your budget. All right, so let's say you are looking ahead, you have a school event for your kid, and you're not going to have time to cook. So maybe the night prior is going to be a food prep night. And then the nights you don't have commitments after work or at your kid's school, those are going to be more suitable for your cooking nights, your food prep nights for the next day, etc. All right, so always thinking ahead to what your household's going to be looking at for the following week and what are the busy nights. Those busy nights should not be cooking nights. Um, if they are, I mean, they can be, but it's hard to stick to it when you're passing multiple drive-through restaurants or convenient places, right? It's going to be more tempting because you're going to come home and be tired and not want to cook. Um, all right, I'm just looking at, okay, Vincent had a good comment. Suggestions for someone who's trying to eat healthy, but the other family members aren't. That's a hard one. Has anyone had any luck with that? Hard, Vincent, just because when you're making your weekly menu, you want to make it for the whole family, not just for the healthy eaters and then the less healthy eaters. So it gets hard and that can certainly make Challenges for the budget when you're kind of catering to two sets of palates. Pamela just says she makes them eat whatever she cooks. Yeah, starting with small swaps. Yeah, so it might be, I mean, if someone's just not on board with say eating more vegetables, right? Maybe that's just, can you do one additional serving of vegetables versus several extra batches of vegetables, right? There might be some give and take for something like that, or just finding what compromises can be made because it does get hard. Hmm. Yeah. So again, just thinking ahead, what is your schedule? What is your budget? Uh, what is your calorie levels, right? All of this. Yeah, thanks everyone for input for Vincent. Yeah, it's hard, Vincent. That's a tough one. Because like I said, think of running your household like running a restaurant. You can't really run two different restaurants under the same roof, right? It gets challenging. So just seeing what they're willing to compromise on. Um, it's certainly easier when all members of the household go on this new chapter together versus everyone just getting fast food and eating it at the table together. All right, and then once you are at the store, this looks like, oh, sorry, this came out kind of small, but just a few things with shopping strategically. We've probably heard a lot of these. Don't shop when you're hungry. When you're hungry, everything looks good, and you just start loading everything into your cart. You don't want to do that. All right, shop when you are not hungry. With your cold foods, those should be shopped for last. That's just best for making sure they are not out of refrigeration. So, right, we're just keeping it fresher for longer. So those colder ingredients should be shopped for last. Stick to your grocery list. All right, if there's an ingredient that you need, those are the only aisles you're going for. Don't go down the aisles that don't have what you need. If you are cutting coupons or looking at your circulars, make sure you have all that with you. There are actually some apps where you don't even need those paper coupons anymore. So some people will just use the apps. But either way, have those ready to go when you are at your grocery store. And then looking at unit prices, of course, for finding value. We'll talk about that in a second. And then, of course, store brands typically are cheaper than the national brands. If a national brand is on sale, it might make more sense to shop for that one instead of the store brand. So, of course, always checking for that. And then buying things in bulk usually costs less as well. Not all the time, but in many cases it does, right? Costco has their entire business model based on the buying in bulk. So, a lot of times, especially for bigger families, buying in bulk is the way to go. All right. So, do y'all look at unit prices when you grocery shop? Or do you pay? Are you familiar with it? Okay, perfect. So a lot of you know what this is. So I do grocery store tours in my community, and a lot of people don't even know what it is. They're like, "Well, I've always seen two numbers. I don't know what that other one was." Looks like a lot of you are aware of it, so we don't have to spend too much time on this. But yes, there are two numbers on the price tag. There is the retail price, which is what you're paying, and then there is the unit price, and that is if you were to squeeze that food product by the ounce, what is it costing you? All right, basically, this is going to show you where the most value is. So if you look at these three examples of feta cheese, you see the retail price, and then there's also that unit price. So which unit price is showing us the most bang for your buck? Yeah, that 8 ounce one. Yeah. So, and it's the same price as a 6 ounce one. So right off the bat, you're gonna look at that and say, well, I'm gonna get the bigger size versus that 6 ounce. But then, of course, the 4 ounce seems enticing, being that it's less, it's 2.99, but there's not as much value. Your money goes further on that 8 ounce feta cheese chunk at 5.29 because it's 66.13 cents per ounce versus the other two. All right, so oh, somebody asked, can you freeze the leftover feta? I believe feta cheese. I'd have to check. Has anyone frozen feta cheese? Keeping it in salt water, it changes the texture. Yeah, so it sounds like it's an option, but ideally it's probably easier to just, when if you're buying it, you had it all planned out, you're going to use it accordingly before it goes bad, and then you don't have to get to that point where you have to worry about freezing it. But it sounds like you can. Pamela said it changes the texture. Kate said you can just keep it in salt water. All right, so unit pricing. A little bit more on this. So the store typically has this already laid out for you, but let's just pretend it doesn't. So you see this 32 ounce of yogurt is $1.62, and the 72 or and the 6 ounce container of yogurt comes to 72 cents. So what is the unit price of these? If you take the price, divide it by ounces, it's going to give you the answer. And again, this is where you're going to find that value. So a lot of people like the little 6 ounce yogurt containers. They're just easy to grab and go. Everything's pre-portioned out for you. But you'll see, yeah, awesome. So a lot of you were able to do the math on that. Yeah, so, but you'll see 5 cents per ounce on the low-fat yogurts, 32 ounce container versus 12 cents per ounce on the 6 ounce container. So more value is on, or you'll find in the bigger container. So again, typically buying in bulk sees more savings. Now, if you're not going to use that yogurt in time, if it's going to spoil, then there was no savings. You just threw money away. So again, planning it out, plan those meals. If you're going to be buying a 32 ounce container of yogurt, what are you going to do in the next week, 10 days to make sure it's getting used, right? Are those going to be in your snacks? Are you going to have smoothies for breakfast, right? Etc. Plan ahead so you're not throwing out any of that food. All right, and then back to this slide. So we talked about a lot of the empty calorie type snacks. We had their prices listed before, but here they are with their unit prices. All right, so a lot of these snack foods too aren't very economical when you're looking at the unit pricing. So we'll look at some examples too, side by side of the unhealthy and then the healthier. So, and again, I said a few slides ago that a snack should have at least two food groups. I didn't get into the nitty-gritty on that. We're, adding, another food group divided by this and that, right? I just went with simple ingredients here. But something like a banana, 3.1 cents per ounce. Yogurt, 2.64 cents per ounce, right? So you see the unit price is showing it's a little bit more economical to get a healthier snack. The mixed nuts, though, those came to 36.6 cents per ounce. So those were the only ones that were up there. Nuts are pricey. All right, so but if you can just have an ounce as a snack, those are very filling and again, nutrient dense versus something like the Cheetos, similar unit price, but not you're not getting any nutrition off those Cheetos. The mixed nuts will do you way more good, right? There's fiber, you'll feel full. There's protein, which will help you feel full, right? Your body would much prefer the mixed nuts over the Cheetos. And then your wallet, of course, may not know the difference as much because they're a similar retail price and unit price, but of course, those mixed nuts are way healthier. So just some side-by-side examples there. All right, and then a little bit more on shopping strategically. So with the produce, right? We have the fresh, frozen, canned, all of those are going to count. So if the fresh stuff is really pricey, that's the usually the cue that it is not in season, and you're going to be paying for it if it's not in season. So just see what the frozen and canned options are, and you'll usually see savings that way. Now, if you're going to shop for pre-cut fruits and vegetables, you're going to pay for that convenience, right? So the store went through all the labor and you're paying for that labor. So can you just cut up a watermelon at home? You'll see savings that way versus the pre-cut watermelon. And then just a note when you're buying a lot of the frozen and canned produce, some of the frozen stuff, like if it's cheesy broccoli, just check on that because there might be a lot of sodium. And with the canned vegetables, you might see a lot of salt there. Canned fruit might have some added sugar. So always checking the label for stuff like that. Some easy, low-cost items you can just always have on hand, pretty much recurring on your weekly meal planning would be, various beans and lentils, peanut butter, canned tuna, eggs, right? These would be really affordable protein sources. With vegetables, you'll see fresh carrots, cabbage, potatoes, onions. Those are very hearty, last a long time in your fridge or pantry, and you can incorporate lots of meals with those. Bananas, apples, grapes, right? Really low cost, year-round availability at the store. Grains are usually the most affordable food group out of all of them. And then, of course, dairy, pretty much year-round. There's no like seasonal dairy that I've seen at least. So, of course, the milks, yogurts, cheeses, just finding what works for you and what size to get. Just watch out with the flavored dairies, chocolate milk and berry flavored yogurt, right? A lot of that's going to add extra sugar, and sugar is calories. And we all saw a few slides ago how many calories you need. So, easy way to cut back on calories is to get the plain stuff. Don't get that flavored, sugary stuff. All right. And Destiny asked if we'll share the PowerPoint. Yes, I believe we will send a follow-up email with a lot of the resources and the slides. Store apps and third-party apps. Has anyone on here used any of these? This is not a full list, but these are some of the more popular ones. The only thing with these apps, oh, and Patricia said we're going to share this on the YouTube page. Awesome. Yeah, so with the apps, I was using some of these, and the main barrier for me was that it was just an extra step. So we talked about meal planning and writing your weekly menu and thinking of your schedule for the next week. It's a lot, and then you have to kind of play the game on the app, so to speak, right? So now you got to upload your receipts and wait till you hit a certain amount to get your rebate and get your rebate sent to you or get a gift card sent to you. It just kind of became an extra step for me. So I wasn't keeping up with it as well. But again, everyone's going to run their household differently, and you might find the extra time it takes to be worthwhile. So those are just some examples. And yeah, you might find options at the stores where they have loyalty cards. So Pamela mentioned some places with the digital coupons. Yeah, somebody said that they tend to buy things they don't really need. Yeah, so this is why you would want a meal plan first, or meal plan based on what you have at your home first. And then see what's on sale at the stores, and then you can kind of see where these come into play. You don't want to buy something just because you saw it on sale on these on one of these apps. Yeah, but they are pretty handy. Some of them will search for all kinds of things on sale at various stores. So you don't have to go to the individual store to find what's on sale. You can take pictures. There's a lot of different ways that these can be really beneficial. Another thing just to be aware of. The reason why you'll see savings and stuff like that with these is because your information gets sold. So if that doesn't bother you, and again, these days I feel like everyone's watching our spending habits anyway, so what's one more? But if you're trying to limit that, just know that your information is typically shared with various manufacturers and stores, and so they might send you stuff that maybe you don't need to shop for, but they see a pattern that you're shopping for something, and they'll try to entice you with coupons on stuff that maybe you don't necessarily need. But they could be worth checking out, especially if you're trying really hard to save money on groceries and you're not seeing savings despite everything else. That could be another option. All right, and then the last thing to talk about is food waste. So, um, there's a lot of statistics, but I did see the most recent one, like up to 30% of the food we buy ends up getting thrown out. All right, so that's money down the drain. So don't throw out food simply because it went past a best by date or a use by date. All right, there's usually a little bit more life left in that food product. So when you see the word sell by, that's just telling the store how long to display the product. When you see best before or best if used by, that is just saying when it is recommended for best flavor or quality. And then the use by, again, it's just looking at the peak day of that range of quality and when is that last day of. So that's the last day of peak quality. So this is a quality factor, not a food safety factor. So don't worry if it goes 2, 3, 4 days past these days. It's typically still safe. The only exception is infant formula and baby food. Those typically have the words expire, not use by, not sell by, but usually the words expire. And those you do not want to serve past that date. Just very specific formulas for nutrients on there. They just not worth the risk of going past that date. So with the baby food and infant formula, toss it if it hits that date. But for typically a lot of everything else, it is still safe to consume. Somebody said dates on eggs. Yeah, eggs are usually good for like 4 or 5 weeks. Those can last a while, so you don't have to be quick to toss them. With a lot of foods too, you'll see signs of spoilage, not all the time, but some things are pretty obvious, like opened milk. If it's 3 days past the date and that milk's been opened, that's probably going to be the last day that's good. Um, Beyond that, I wouldn't. But if it's sealed milk and it went 3 days past, it can still go for a few more days, even beyond that. Yeah, Alicia, I saw that float sink test too on the eggs. Yeah, I think Kelly's talking about the same thing, that floating test. Yeah, there's actually some food storage resources too. So we'll share this. Patricia, if you can get it in the chat too. So this is pretty cool. It'll tell you the one on the right, the Food Keeper app. It's also a website if you don't want to download the app, but it has thousands of food products, and you can just type in the food item, and it will tell you how long it is good for. It'll tell you how at what point to freeze it and how long it can be frozen for. So just some handy resources and again, you can get the app too on the food for the Food Keeper one. That's through the USDA. Cold food storage chart is also going to help when to toss out various foods and for how long to still keep them by. Because again, you don't want to throw away all your, so much food. That's gross. That's food and money down the drain when you're throwing out food. All right, so we're about to wrap up. So just a few tips. So again, just making your planned overs, right? AKA your leftovers, planning that out in advance. What are your busiest nights of the week? Those are going to be your leftover nights or your no cook nights, or you're just going to have a sandwich, let's say. All right, cooking larger portions. If you have to, go meatless a little bit throughout the week just to save on your groceries. Swap all those sodas out for healthy water. Again, we saw your calorie levels. Don't drink your calories. You'll hit your calorie levels very easily if you're drinking a lot of high calorie drinks. And they also cost a lot. So go with water. And then decrease the amount of the less healthy foods that you buy. So focusing more on nutrient dense food and not the calorie dense foods. And then you're saving money and becoming healthier. All right, so if you're trying to get into meal planning, if you haven't done, I know a lot of you said in the chat earlier that you do meal plan, but if not, there's lots of different templates out there. So what's your weekly menu going to look like? And then what ingredients do you need to make that menu happen? You'll find things on Canva and Pinterest. There's a curriculum we use at Extension Med instead of Meds that has a pretty cool template. So Patricia just added that there. So a few different ways you can go about getting your meal planning and shopping list. And some recipe ideas too. There's a couple. I know we're running low on time, so Patricia, if you could just add those. But yeah, there's a few different ways you can find recipes that'll help you filter them into low cost, just few ingredient recipes. All right, everyone. So our last thing to do, we're going to just do a quick survey because that's what we do here in the world of extension. We love to survey you and make sure we touched on the things we wanted to talk about. So if you could just fill out that survey, Patricia just put it in the chat. Just a few questions there. Let me know when you're done. Please mark done when you are finished. And then we will officially wrap up. So I thank you all for being here. Hopefully it was if you knew it, hopefully it was a good review. If it was new information, I hope it is helpful and for you to eat healthier and save money at the grocery store.
Okay, I don't see any more questions, I should say, either in the Q&A or in the chat. So thank you, Shari. We appreciate the information that you shared with us and the time they put into that presentation. It was very useful. The recording of the presentation will be uploaded sometime next week, hopefully early next week. So you'll be able to reference that. And as Shari mentioned, I put the chat file in there. So if those of you who want to download that, so you can grab the information that was shared, you can do that as well. So thank you, Shari. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You have a good day, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.